Hello, everyone, and welcome to Plugged In with Di and Warren. Today, we are proud to welcome our very first guest, Evan Hoskins of Sioux Hudson Literacy Council's Do IT program. Get plugged in and hear all about how we do information, innovation, and inspiration. This podcast has been produced by the team at Good Learning Anywhere, a division of Sioux Hudson Literacy Council, and our theme music is by bensound.com. We are your hosts, Diane Altinbalek and Warren Butler. All right. Welcome, Evan. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having
Good.
me.
We're super happy to have you here with us. Warren and I just kind of got a little bit excited and podcast happy after our first episode. So we immediately started talking about like, okay, when do we want to do the next one? Who's our next guest? And you were like the very first person that popped up for us.
Right on.
Yeah. So just for everybody out there, you are plugged in with Diane Warren, and we are sitting down to talk to our special guest, Evan Hoskins from the Do IT program at Sioux Hudson Literacy Council. So, Evan, tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about Do IT.
Yeah. About myself, I do a lot. I wear many hats. I was just thinking about this before the show. I think, how do you define yourself, Evan? Today, I would say I'm a long distance runner, a poet, and I also teach adult literacy, which is a really fun combination of things. And the Do IT program is one of the things that I'm doing. I say it's a big collaboration. I just kind of steer it in directions depending on where it needs to go and who wants to help. But it's essentially it's a digital literacy program that one part actually does the hands-on teaching and helps improve digital literacy with a bunch of tools. But then in its another way, it also helps train the trainers. We do a lot of like consulting with other literacy groups to help get them set up with ways to teach digital literacy as well.
It's funny, working in the literacy and basic skills field, we use a lot of acronyms. So I was wondering maybe if Evan, you could let our listeners know what the DOI2T acronym stands for.
I think it's a great question. It's more important, I think, as an acronym because it stands for a whole bunch of things that it doesn't actually mean in the acronym. So its actual words are discover, online, internet integrated technology, I think is it. It was come up by John Baum, right, at the Learning Center here. And that's, I guess, what it was meant to be at the beginning, but it's changed a lot from that. We do a lot of things that are offline. We do a lot of things that are integrated with internet or with digital tech, and some things that aren't. And but the idea is that it's better. Like I said, it's better in its acronym. It's about doing IT things, about doing things connected to technology.
See, I remember this program came to be at some point when I was on maternity leave. And when I came back and I found out that we had a program called Do IT, I started thinking about like IT as in what you think an IT department is in an office building and everything. And I was just kind of like, that seems like a lot of really, really deep information and everything. And I kind of always visualized us as, being the skills building step to getting people into those types of careers, not actually promoting those careers ourselves. And then like, I was just blown away when I found out about some of the stuff that you were doing and how exciting it was and how not, hey, did you turn your computer off and on again? It was.
Yeah, like I'll be honest, I don't like the name. I don't, I don't think it represents us well, but not well is the wrong word. I don't think it is a good definition of what we do. Saying that, it is just a name. We've never run into a problem really with someone being like, "Oh, are you an IT department?" And I'd imagine a lot of places have evolved out of their name, like Microsoft or Apple. They're a lot more than a fruit.
Well, yeah, isn't that the truth? So tell us about some of the technology, some of the specific tools and technology that you guys work with.
Yeah, so that's kind of in both sides of this, in the actual hands-on teaching side and in the consulting side. We've kind of narrowed down a few really fun pieces of technology that are really helpful for engaging learners with digital tech, what I call like sneaking in learning. And right now we're working with a lot of 3D printers, and Diane, you know a lot about that as well. So we're working with you on that. So a lot of 3D printers. We're working a lot with the Cricut crafting tools, which we can get into. And then a few other things like little robots. We use a lot of these Ozobot programmable robots in the Ozobot program. And then we're always exploring other things, other pieces of tech as well. So at the Learning Center, we have this big Dremel laser cutter engraver tool that takes up half of the office. It's very cool.
That is super, super cool. Like, Warren, did you actually get into any of these? Like, I know that when some of us got introduced at one of our little, I call them togetherness conferences, but I guess John likes to call them staff retreats. And you folks from Do IT ended up bringing in like Cricuts to show us and brought in 3D printers, and I got super hooked on 3D printing. Warren, did you end up leaving that conference with a hobby?
Yeah, you know what? Like, I've never really, like personally, I've never really gotten into, crafting or kind of, making tangible things that I can hold in my hands. Just not anything I've really been interested in. But I did want to mention, I was in a meeting this morning, actually, with Jonathan, and he was talking about the laser engraver, and he showed an example of, I think it was somebody's iPod or an iPhone. I couldn't tell, but Noreen in the office had engraved something on the back of this device, and I thought it was only for wood. I didn't realize you could use the engraver on different materials. So that was pretty neat. But it's always just intrigued me. And we work at a distance, so I'm not always in the office and I can't see everything. But the one thing that I've always admired is I see a lot of the pictures of the work that the learners are completing, and I see the smiles on their faces, and they're just so proud of what they've done, which has just been fascinating. Like, that's the angle I kind of want to learn more. I want to learn more, like, what is everyone else doing? How are they using the technology, and kind of what are the skills that they're learning? So maybe not me personally, but I'm quite intrigued to see what everyone else is up to.
And then to follow off that, Warren, I have this fun wide breadth of feedback from other learning centers. That's the kind of the consultation side of all of these conversations I have with other learning centers, other practitioners who are now running Do IT stuff at their learning centers. And so I get a pretty cool perspective on your question, your interest there on a kind of Ontario wide, still micro, but still kind of from across the province, of what practitioners are using these tools for, how they're integrating them into different courses, and then what their learners are coming up with. And some things are the same, like this idea of a t-shirt project is quite universal. Like, it's a quick, fun task that people leave with a smile. And a finished project in their hand. But then there's other stuff of like how they're integrating it into courses. that is different from center to center, which is fascinating. And so some learners are leaving like, you know, a 4-week long cricket course knowing a whole bunch of stuff about designing, graphic design, business planning, stuff I hadn't thought of. And while another place, kind of like our learning center here, we have learners leaving after an hour, just really happy. And it's like, great, maybe they'll come back. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of different ways people are engaging.
Yeah, it's really cool. Just the amount of skills that are sort of ingrained with that, not just like the digital literacy and stuff, but how much math you don't even know that you're doing and so forth. And then the
Right.
artistic angles of it. It's like it's been really cool. And I agree with both of you. It's really interesting seeing what kind of innovative things people come up with. And I am dying for travel to open up again to visit the Learning Center in Sioux Lookout just to get my hands on that laser engraver, because as many people know, I do a lot of jewelry making, and I wire wrap stones. And what I want to do is use the laser engraver to put, you know, images on stones and so forth, just to kind of add another artistic and unique element to my jewelry and stuff like that. So I'm really excited to kind of just be able to spend an afternoon with Noreen playing with that in the future.
We would love to have you. And that
Uh-huh.
actually, that's a pretty good segue into something else I wanted to say is that, yes, we'd love to have you. It's too bad that COVID has slowed us down and that we haven't been able to have you before. And the DoIT program is one of the reasons it thrives is because it is so hands-on. It's not it's not computer-based primarily. It's like the computer stuff is secondary. And so all of these tools, the Cricut crafting stuff, the 3D printing, the laser, like they all require you to have physical supplies first and like think creatively first. Even with the robots to some degree, it's that way. And so it's such a fun program because of it, and it was hit so hard during COVID because we needed to be face to face for it to work. Hit hard, like we're still around, of course, but we haven't been able to engage, travel to different centers, meet all of these different learners, and we workshopped with a lot of practitioners on ways to bypass that, or find ways to work around these restrictions. And we really couldn't. It just turned us into another kind of IT department at that point when we started to do it just on a computer. And so it was a weird year and a half during COVID for the DoIT program, but now it seems like we're getting back to it, which we're excited for.
So are you excited to go into other communities with your presentations and to set up other learning centers again?
Yeah, and we kind of have a backlog now, which is okay. We'll get to them eventually. We have grant funding to bring all of this tech and leave it in 4 communities north of Sioux Lookout. One we already have because one is right next door to us in Laxel. We've set up in the spring. We set up at the Laxel Center, Training Center of Excellence, I think it's called. And we meant to go back and do follow-up, but have been postponed. And then there's 3 more that we're going to up north as well. Big Trout Lake, KI as one, and I believe the other 2 are Fort Severn First Nation and Webequay, I think.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see what they do with it too.
Well, you know what's interesting about bringing these technologies and bringing these creative ways of using technology. One of the things that I've observed is just kind of someone taking a step back and watching is I've really enjoyed Evan's approach. So for anyone that has not worked with Evan before, one of the things that really stands out is Evan wants people to get involved. Evan's not going to do a presentation and do all the work for everybody else. Evan really tries to get, people involved and touching the machines and loading the machines with the 3D printing materials. And I think Evan's done this probably 1,000 different times playing with the equipment, but it's really neat just to see how he can get everyone else engaged with it. And it just brings so much more than, like what you were saying before, it's not just sitting in front of a computer. There's a lot of communication going back and forth. There's a lot of hands-on activity. It's just very interactive, and I think it just touches on so many different aspects of learning, which is really, really special, I think.
Yeah, and I think that that's amazing for people who don't have the learning style to just sit in front of a computer. It's giving them something to do. There's a demonstration aspect, there's a visual aspect, there definitely the hands-on aspect with it as well. Like with the example of 3D printing and everything, I got really, really excited about doing something on my computer and then having something physical I could hold in my hand that was produced from it. I liked the idea of the digital and physical world sort of coming together. And I just love my 3D printing. I love everything I can do with it. I make little things for my kids. I make cookie cutters. I make parts for jewelry and everything. And it was really, really interesting and super exciting for me to see all of that stuff effectively come out of my computer. Pardon my air quotes. I am interested, though, in one of the other aspects. So I've gotten to play with Cricut and I've gotten to play with 3D printers at length. One that I'm really interested in hearing about is the Ozobots, because Evan told us about them before, and I think that I somehow missed out on the demonstration of it. But the idea that you could do coding without sitting at your computer and hammering out code through your keyboard the traditional way was super, super interesting to me. And I'm really, really excited to introduce my kids to that when they're an appropriate age. So Evan, tell us about Ozobots.
Yeah, I'll use an example that goes back to Warren's last comments, is that Linda Wright and I did a presentation at the Contact North conference in Toronto, like the last one before COVID there. And we just did it as like, it was like an hour-long session, and we did it just like I would do a group session, like a group training Do-IT session at like the hospital here or something, with like 3 or 4 learners, except we did it with like 40 or 50 LBS practitioners. And that was fascinating because, well, one, like I said, like you were saying, Ward, I like to be interactive in the sessions. I also don't like, I've gone to enough conferences, I've done enough university, and in both of those, most of the time I'm really bored. And if I'm going to host something, I don't want it to be that boring. And so we brought all the tools, we set them all up, and instantly, before we even started, we had people playing with them all. But I bring up that example because the Ozobots were like the most engaged with tool out of all the things we brought. And I don't really know even why that is still, but people are really attracted to them. Maybe it's because how they move or how you can engage on your cell phone so quickly with them. But yeah, I find them to be really exciting. I know that Ozobot is designing their curriculum and even the robots for kids, for teens, for schools. But in reality, once you actually have them out and you have the apps out and you're playing with them, they could be for anybody. And that's why we really like them. They are not, none of their media, none of their appearance is kind of restrictive. And as an adult, you don't feel like you're playing with a kid's toy necessarily. And that maybe that is part of it. But yeah, they're really fun. We enjoy the Ozobots. Like I said, there's a lot of education being developed, curriculum being developed in the world for teaching kids how to code. And we were thinking, I guess, over a couple of years, that there's significantly less of that out there for adults, especially adults who are like middle age or older, who have like missed all of those steps of education through their life. And so these bots are a really good introduction to just some of these basic skills or basic knowledge about how coding works. They're a great entry point for it. And then, yeah, the one last point there, Diane, is like it's super easy as well. Just like the other two pieces of tech, you just go on your phone, go on a computer, make a code with some simple blocks. You can load it up. You don't even need Bluetooth. You load it up just by touching it, and then it drives around, does whatever you want. So really small, really packable, travel easy, and quick change with learners. They're really fun.
And I think that type of stuff really fits with the good learning anywhere philosophy in general, is kind of demystifying these digital skills and everything and making them accessible to other people. And, we really do our best to remind people that it's never too late to learning's a lifelong process and everything. We're constantly adapting, we're constantly changing, we're constantly evolving our knowledge and everything. So why can't we apply that to more formal educational contexts as well? Learning's not just for children. There's a lot of things that interrupt or that change for adults when it comes to learning. Sometimes, we're educated out the Yahoo, and then the field changes and we have to be re-educated and everything. It's not just people who missed opportunities. There's a lot of context where continuing to learn as an adult is important. And I think that that's why it's really, really important to keep this philosophy going, that learning is for everybody, for making it accessible to everybody as well. So I really, really appreciate that aspect of Do IT. It's why it's kind of become one of my favorite features at Sioux Hudson Literacy. For those of you out there who don't know, we're participating with Do IT in our independent learning area as well. We have 2 courses in Moodle, which is our short course independent format. And we have an introduction to Cricut design and an introduction to 3D printing in there. And those courses are really cool. They're chock full of interactive media and videos and so forth. And they really show all of the different and innovative ways that these can be used in areas that you might not have thought of. So it's really important for us as a literacy and basic skills agency, and in Sioux Lookout with the Physical Learning Center and everything, to make sure that we're sort of promoting that everybody can do it, that everybody can access it. There's a lot of different ways outside of that purposely mystifying context that seems to be excluding people from accessing that education and those skills. And I think that you guys are doing fantastic work.
Yeah, like Do IT is not going to retrain somebody so that they can get a job in IT. And it's not the goal of it. The goal is to excite people into learning about digital skills. It's like to create this spark and to create an entry that isn't abrasive, that is more fun, and that they can see themselves taking further steps.
Well, I think that you've been absolutely successful in that regard.
Right on.
So where do you guys see this program going in the future? Do you have any goals for expanding it? Are you looking for any other tools and technology to incorporate?
Don't really have a final goal or even really much of a plan, or a growth plan at least. But I have had great talks with some of our managers, just like debrief talks, like annually, just like, where are we? What are some of the future goals? And it seems like those are moving us in the right directions, and it seemed to be moving us towards, I guess, like continued support of what we're doing. It takes a lot of work just to kind of operate our own program, and then a lot of my capacity just to make sure that the rest of the learning centers around the province that we help are doing okay and that they stay supported. And for now, that's great. And it seems like just with that effort, that through word of mouth and through the occasional grant, the program is doing the right thing and therefore is naturally growing. And so not really concerned where it will go because I can feel that it's not stopping. So it's more, it's like an exciting unknown of where it'll go next.
Awesome. So it's a little bit more of an organic sort of experience with how you grow this program then.
Yeah, and you know what? I think a lot of it also depends on the other learning centers that are engaged in the program as well. You know, with Evan being able to stay in touch with them, it's very interesting to see where they want to take it. And, you know, I think that poses some challenges for Evan because he's going to get pulled in a lot of different directions because different learning centers are going to have different ideas and, you know, they'll have, you know, different concepts that they want to maybe implement. So it's pretty neat that, you know, the pressure doesn't just rest on Evan's shoulders. There's many other learning centers that are involved as well.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point is, you know, what are their visions and where is it going to take them and everything. So the possibilities are seemingly endless with this one, and it just makes it so much more exciting. Warren, did you have anything else that you wanted to touch on?
Well, I wanted to ask Evan, like, obviously he's, you know, worked with so many different learners, but I was curious, were there any highlights of different things that were made that just kind of stood out and resonated with you?
Yeah. Again, like I have to say, like pre-COVID, but before that, one of the bigger, more of like a statistic, though it's a bit informal of a statistic, is we did a lot of work with in Sioux Lookout, but with people from northern communities who were like down in Sioux Lookout for a week or two for medical stuff, and we would either engage them at the hospital here in town, like the hotel for patients at the hospital, or through like one of the programs that we'd collaborate with, and we would find like people would engage with things outside of what we would assume they would like. So for instance, like we would set down robots, the Ozbot robots, and we'd have like 6 men and over the age of 50 or 60 and like 2 women in their 40s. And it would be like 4 or 5 of the men who would be engaging with the robots. They would be sitting back doing nothing, being like, oh, what are these pieces of junk? And then 5 minutes in, they would be like the leaders of the like robot crew. And it was like, I had no idea this was coming. I had no idea this would be something you would like more than anyone else. And then the Cricut as well. The Cricut is, you know, it's called a crafting tool, but I don't think that represents it well. Like, yes, if you look online on YouTube, you're going to get crafting videos up the wazoo. There's thousands of them. Yet it really can be used to create anything. So for those who don't know, the Cricut machine is like a little cutter, like a die cutter machine, and you can put in a blade or a knife or something, and it will cut or draw or score or fold really anything flat you can slide in it. So paper, felt, leather, metal, copper, wood, just about anything, fondant. And so the options for things you can do with it are huge. And when we would bring it again to something like those hospital programs, we would get all these cool ideas that I wouldn't have thought of. So you get like traditional ideas of like, well, I want to use this to like cut leather for like some beading projects. But then we got other fun ideas, like maybe this is a new, more efficient way to create like custom jingles for a jingle dress. Like I would have never thought of that as an option, but we tried it. In fact, we cut jingles out of the 3D printer. We cut jingles out of the Cricut, and we also 3D printed jingles on the 3D printer. Neither of them worked very well, but it was fun that people came up with those. As you know, they saw it and they thought, okay, this is like a way I can attempt to create a traditional piece, like traditional item, but like with a contemporary tool.
But nothing ventured, nothing gained either. So
yeah.
at least they're trying something new. They're, you know, like these are people who they're seeing something in it and some potential in it, and they're testing it, they're experimenting. And, curiosity goes a long way. And who knows what they would have come up with that would have been a success story, or what they will come up with in the future, because now they've got that curiosity, and they have a vehicle for this curiosity now.
Yeah. So there's been a lot of like cool individual projects that have been done. Some of the highlights, when someone they're putting their name or their kid's name on a shirt or a backpack. Like, there's a ton of people that see these things that are like, that's the item for me to make a custom gift. Like, someone's gonna love me for making this. And those are always tons of fun to produce. But I really get excited when someone is looking at it as like a tool for invention. That's quite fun.
One of the greatest things about working with adult learners is they're very resourceful and they're very, very good problem solvers. So Evan's telling the story of the gentleman sitting back and just kind of evaluating what's going on. And I can picture that, because, that's what people do, right? Especially when you have a lot of experience and you have a lot of knowledge in a lot of different areas, you can try to solve problems and be resourceful. So that's something that's very special, I think. Working with adult learners and in a program like this just ties into that so well, and it builds people's confidence, right? People know that, hey, you know what, we had an issue, but I asked a couple questions and we kind of went down a certain road and we found the answer we were looking for. So it makes people feel good, right? They're motivated, they're inspired, and they feel like they're contributing to something, right? Which I think's again really special.
Yeah, and I want to point out the social aspect of it too. Like, it's more than sitting at a computer or making something and everything too, because like, you've got these hands-on demonstrations and everything. Evan's pointing out that they're doing this as groups and everything, and how the groups are interacting with each other, the excitement that's generated. One thing that I've noticed in my own experience with venturing into the 3D printing is there are communities out there. There's people, they want to talk about it, they want to share designs, they want to ask people for tips and so forth. And just the amount of groups on social media and other websites and so forth is amazing. People interacting and commenting, like even people who post on Thingiverse. So for context, for listeners out there who are not familiar, Thingiverse is a repository for 3D print designs and so forth. And that's just the part of it that I know about. It might actually be much bigger than that.
It's a free one. That's the other big part. It's a place where you
Yeah.
can get free designs versus having to pay.
Yeah, so you have designers that are contributing these free designs, and then there's comment forums and so forth where they're giving tips on, oh, well, I was able to do this on this machine, but not on this one. This design works better with this slicer. This other people just saying like, oh, I printed out this and then I incorporated it into this craft and everything. And it's really, really interesting how social this technology can actually be. And it's really, really uplifting to see people encourage each other. There's not people who are like, I designed this and I own this and nobody else can use it. Look how great it is. None of you can have it. None of you can do it. There's people out there who are putting their stuff out there, people who are building on it, people who are giving feedback, and the interaction's incredible.
So as we were looking at these pieces of tech, and as we continue to look at more pieces in the future, one of our big qualifiers, one of our restrictions is always accessibility. These three things, the Cricut Maker, the Ozobots, and the 3D printers, are all for the most part free to use once you have the tech. And so that's kind of, again, that's one part that DoIT is trying to do, or trying to be the bridge between getting between that inaccessibility of actually acquiring the hardware, So we're trying to get it and spread it around as much as we can so people can engage with it, have a laptop, have a 3D printer, have the filament right there, and they don't have to go out and buy it to try it. So as you know, as we expand and then as we continue, like Cricut has a few more things that have restrictions, but we have to pay for memberships, for example. But as we engage with other centers and engage with people around the community, we'll continue to try to bridge that. For example, we try to buy as many Cricut memberships as we can so that people can just use them. Yeah, because these things can be really expensive and really off the table for a lot of people because of that price.
And that's another thing I really appreciate about you is there's, why not have a community center where it's welcoming and open for people to use it, and everybody from all walks of life can just go in there and access it. The only upsetting thing about that is that we can't just clone you and put you in every single community.
I wanted to say this earlier, but I'll say it now. If somebody is listening and they're like super keen to engage with these tools, these UIT tools, the other big part of this conversation is that, of course, colleges and university programs and a lot of grade schools are doing this stuff already. If you go to a high school, you're probably going to find a 3D printer in it. However, LBS we're about engaging these communities that aren't in those two. They're not in high school and they're not in college or university. And that can be tough for those groups to find it. What I wanted to say was a lot of libraries now are creating, they call it like a maker space, right? And they'll probably have a 3D printer and something like a Cricut at them. So DOIT is a great option, but there's others out there, which is cool. And then our DOIT programs engaging with those as well, those libraries as well when we can.
I definitely recommend checking out public libraries, just because public libraries are also one of those things where if you're not using it, you're going to lose it. So I always look for ways to encourage people to go and use their public libraries and so forth. Thunder Bay, my hometown, actually has a makerspace in their main location for the public library, and I always do my best to try and encourage people, direct them over to there to learn about it, engage it, and so forth too. So it's really, really good that you bring that up, because if you're not a community that yet has a DOIT installation yet, there are still ways that you can access this.
Yeah, and then maybe that is one way we look at expanding, if that is the word we'll use, but expanding in the future, because we're kind of already doing it, but looking at places where the libraries are either so small or the community is so small that they don't have a library, or they're so small that the library doesn't have the capacity to bring that stuff in. And we look at engaging LBS centers in those places just so that residents have another option for learning digital literacy, improving their digital literacy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So one quick question for you there, Evan. So, we've talked a lot about the program and the different technologies we're using. And I know we're on a podcast, so people are listening, but I know we have a lot of listeners that want to see this for themselves. Is there a website that we can direct them to? How do they go about seeing all these great things?
Yeah, I keep the website updated. So that's DOI2T, the number 2, and then the letter T.com, DOI2T.com. And there's some pictures on there, but there's a lot of other stuff as well. There's a page for each one of the pieces of tech right now with like 1 or 2 or 3 intro videos that are pertinent to getting started. And I often direct the other LBS sites to just have that as a default if they're trying to create some of their own training. Here's some good things. Of course, they can always email me as well. That's a good website just to start with some of this tech, because if you go on YouTube and type in like 3D printing, again, you'll get 10,000 how-to videos. It'll be difficult to nail down which ones are good. And then we also have a Facebook page, same thing, facebook.com/DOI2T. And that's a little more readily updated. Again, it was more pre-COVID, and it will be more post-COVID. And we like to post, projects that we're doing with people. So we'll give general updates, but then just a lot of project picture ideas. So if you're ever looking for like a fun cricket idea, you can find it on there. Or just to see, for example, like what the other learning centers around are doing. They will often send us pictures for us to post. So, yeah, the website or the Facebook page.
Awesome. So I think we're kind of at the point where we could probably wrap this up. Evan, thank you so much for coming and talking with us. It's always a pleasure to have a conversation with you, and I'm sure that I'm going to be bugging you next week when I find time to try and take apart my 3D printer, and we'll put all sorts of questions to you about what I'm doing and how to fix it.
Yeah, community.
So
right?
I'm sure that we're going to be in touch soon. Warren, any final thoughts before we say bye?
Yeah, no, again, I just want to say thank you to Evan as well. And thank you, Di, for leading us through and keeping us on topic and getting us through our second episode here. So it was quite fun. Looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, me too. So everybody out there, if you are interested in keeping up with what we are doing, we are on 6 major podcast platforms, the primary ones being Anchor FM, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. You can also watch us on YouTube and subscribe to our channel, and follow Good Learning Anywhere on Facebook at facebook.com/goodlearninganywhere. If you have a topic that you would like us to talk about, or a question that you would like to ask, you can email me, Diane, at SiouxHudsonLiteracy.com. That's DIANE at SIOUXHUDSONLITERACY.com. So, hope that you've enjoyed this episode, and we will be back talking to you again soon, probably within about a month. Thank you again, Evan, for being here. Warren, looking forward to our next adventure.